Okay, everybody, this one is called Everything is an Illusion. It's The Matrix. Have you ever watched the movie The Matrix? You ought to watch it because everything is an illusion. And once you understand that, you can be Neo. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administering Your Public Servants. I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for donation. And this last paragraph is for all the Satanist order follower revenue officers operating in their private capacity under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. They can put their privileges and benefits up their rectal orifice. Donations to support this work are appreciated, but I prefer gold or silver coin. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept their IOUs, their commercial paper, their Federal Reserve notes, their PayPal gifts, their checks, their money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. Things are not what they appear. Einstein in the universe, Einstein called it crazy physics. What happened was what they did, these physicists, is they went and had a particle gun. An electron gun would shoot an electron through a hole in a concrete wall, and they would have film on the other side, and it would develop on the film, and so they would see where the electron came through. And then what they did is they went and made another hole in the wall with no gun, and they put film there, and when they shot their gun through the one hole, an electron went through that one, and an electron went through the other hole too. The other hole on the other, where there was no gun. And so the conclusion they came to was that the reason that something went through the other hole is because of expectations. It was an illusion. It was you create your own reality. You literally create your own reality. And so that's why Einstein called it crazy physics. Matter of fact, they even have a word for it. Oh man, it escapes me right now off the top of my head. But physicists even have a word for it. So the whole universe is it's a matrix. Okay, and so in the law, the matrix exists as well. Okay, do you know who you are? Everything is an illusion. We, the people, are literally kings and queens. The people are sovereign, are not bound by general words and statutes restrictive of prerogative, right, title, or interest unless expressly named. Acts of limitation do not bind the king or the people. The people have been ceded all the rights of the king, the former sovereign. And that's People versus Herkimer, a New York court case from 1825. Watch the Do You Know Who You Are playlist. Okay, we are literally kings and queens. Do you know who you are? Everything is by consent. It's impossible to prove jurisdiction exists absent a substantial nexus with the state, such as a voluntary subscription to a license. All jurisdictional facts supporting claim that supposed jurisdiction exists must appear on the record of the court. And that's Pipeline versus Marathon, U.S. Supreme Court, quoting Crowell versus Benson, another U.S. Supreme Court case. See the Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Court series of videos. Everything is by consent. Martial law has replaced common law with statutes, and that's all Roman law. And so they've imposed martial law. It's all military government. See the martial laws here video. See the judicial horrors video. See the Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts video series. See the United States is owned and operated by the Roman cult video. Martial law government is what we have. And now a little diversion. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so that you are notified when there is a new upload. And there's a picture of my front page on my channel, and there is the subscribe button on the right, and it's been clicked, and the arrow is pointing at the bell in this, and so what you have to do is click on that bell. A little pop-up will come up, and then you will it'll give you an opportunity to be notified about uploads. And so back to the topic at hand. All courts are Roman cult courts. The black robe is a Baal priest uniform. See the All Courts Are United Nations Courts video. See the United Nations is owned and operated by the Roman cult video. See All Courts Are Roman cult courts video. This is happening in every country on the planet. See the Do-It-Yourself Dealing with CPS video. See the Get Us Out of the UN video. See the Alberta and other Canadian states are under a military occupation video. See the Texas and other American states are under a military occupation video. See the All Courts Are United Nations Courts video. This is all happening on every country in the planet in varying degrees, and it's all. They're all military law. The dictatorships is where the military law, the people lose control and don't know what's happening. It's because of ignorance on the part of the people. It's always because of ignorance on the part of the people. All court cases are commercial transactions under UNIDROIT. See the Judicial Horrors video. See the Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Court series. All court cases are commercial transactions under UNIDROIT. The Uniform Commercial Code equals Roman cult. Whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, the trier of the fact must find the existence of the fact unless and until evidence is introduced that supports a finding of its non-existence. That's Uniform Commercial Code 1-206, presumptions. And so the Uniform Commercial Code equals the Roman cult. This is where they're military courts. This is military government. This is and the Uniform Commercial Code. It's all coming from the United Nations, and the Uniform Commercial Code is their instrument. That's where it's all how they're doing it. It's all about slavery. See, the Social Security number is a badge of slavery. See the Roman cult slave scam video. See the Do-It-Yourself No Birth Certificate, Quit Enslaving Your Sons and Daughters video. See the Do-It-Yourself King or Slave, There Is Nothing Else video. See the U.S. Citizen is a Slave video. See the U.S. Citizen is an Enemy of the State video. See the Judicial Horrors video. It's all about slavery. It's all coming from the Roman cult. It's all Roman law. Civil law, Roman law, and Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And so, again, this is all coming from the Roman cult. It's all coming from the Roman cult. See the Roman cult owns and operates the United States video. See the Roman cult slave scam video. See the United States is a crown territory and the crown owns the United Nations video. See the crown is owned and operated by the Roman cult video. And now a little diversion. Announcing a subscription-based YouTube channel called Sovereignty International. The recommended cost of the subscription is currently $1.99 a month because it avoids the advertising only. When I originally was setting this channel up, I was planning on having some exclusive content. Right now, I don't have any. Well, I do have an Arlington private information share that's up there exclusively. That's nowhere else. But I don't have anything that I want up there, because my agenda is to expose the fraud that these Satanists, these New World Order Satanists, are the fraud and deception because my agenda to expose all this fraud and deception, then I can't think of anything that I want to put up there that is I want to have exclusively, because I want to expose the fraud. And so for that reason, there'll be very little exclusive material on that channel, at least right now. I may come up with something in the future, but I just can't think of anything right now other than that Arlington private information share. So the only thing I can guarantee is that it'll be free of advertising. I'm currently publishing 5 videos a week. And some people have had trouble finding my channel, so I put a link at the bottom of this page. And I've also got a link at the top of this page. This is the front page of my channel. Some people sent me $1.99, and I wasn't sure if they wanted me to subscribe or if they just wanted to make a donation. Donations are certainly appreciated, even $1.99. And subscribing to the channel is a great way to make donations, even if the no advertising is not a big deal for you. But the problem is that I cannot sign anybody up to the channel. I went and sent them an email, and they never did respond, so I don't know what is going on in that respect. But I offered to refund it if because I just told them I could not sign them up to the channel. The procedure is you have to click that start free trial and go through whatever YouTube wants you to go through. They'll probably set up some payment arrangements of some sort, I'm sure, and they're going to want a piece of the action, I'm sure. And so the bottom line is that I cannot sign anybody up. I have no control over that at all, and I may have control over removing. I may be able to remove people, but I am not even sure about that. And so the bottom line is that if you want to subscribe, there's only one way to do it, and it's click that start free trial button, and it's shown here on the bottom arrow on this screen. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. These are all coward Satanists that are doing this. See, the Satanists are cowards. They murder those who cannot defend themselves video. See, that everything they do is a lie, a fraud, and a lie video. This is what, or no, that's not a video. Everything they do is a fraud and a lie. That's what Satanists do. If you participate in the fraud, then you cannot complain. That's why it's a matrix. And so when it becomes a matrix for me and you, they present all of this fraud out there. If you participate, then you cannot complain. That's when it becomes a matrix. That's when it becomes an illusion, because you are participating in the fraud. So we have to stop participating. And so fraud is an intentional perversion of the truth for the purpose of inducing another in reliance upon it to part with some valuable thing belonging to him or to surrender a legal right. Fraud equals lies equals Satanism. When one conveys a false impression by disclosure of some facts and the concealment of others, such concealment is in effect a false representation that what is disclosed is the whole truth. Silence can only be equated with fraud when there is a legal or moral duty to speak, or when an inquiry left unanswered would be intentionally misleading. We cannot condone this shocking conduct. If that is the case, we hope our message is clear. This sort of deception will not be tolerated, and if this is routine, it should be corrected immediately. And so fraud equals lies equals Satanism. And now another little diversion. My contact information is, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profiles are two of them, Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. It takes time to ban 17,000 people off of a group on Facebook, and I am not going to allow Facebook to profit from my hard work. My Yahoo private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants, and my Google private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. So back to the topic at hand. Fraud equals lies equals Satanism. Suppression of a material fact which a party is bound in good faith to disclose is equivalent to a false representation. Fraud and deceit may arise from silence where there's a duty to speak the truth, as well as from speaking an untruth. Concealing a material fact when there is a duty to disclose may be actionable fraud. Where a relation of trust or confidence exists between two parties so that one places peculiar reliance and trustworthiness of another, latter is under duty to make full and truthful disclosure of all material facts and is liable for misrepresentation or concealment. Fraud may be committed by a failure to speak when the duty of speaking is imposed as much as by speaking falsely. Once a fraud, always a fraud. These are maxims now. Fraud equals lies equals Satanism. Once a fraud, always a fraud. These are maxims of law. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by a subsequent act. A thing void in the beginning does not become valid by lapse of time. Time cannot render valid an act void in its origin. Out of fraud, no action arises, and any act by any government official to conceal a fraud becomes an act of fraud. It's a fraud to conceal a fraud, and fraud is inexcusable and unpardonable. Fraud and deceit should excuse no man. This is all Satanism. Fraud equals lies equals Satanism. And any fraud amounts to injustice. Fraud and justice never dwell together. What is otherwise good and just, if sought by force or fraud, becomes bad and unjust. And again, that's a maxim of law that goes to in Isaiah. It says, "Woe unto those who call good evil and evil good." And so then, fraud equals lies equals Satanism. Ye are with your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. That's Revelations 21:8. And so these people are all Satanists, okay? Lying is Satanism, and that's all they can do. They have to lie. They are liars. They're thieves. They're Satanists. Natural law equals Christian government. Natural law equals the law of nature equals God-given rights. Natural law equals the law of the land. If we voluntarily give up our God-given rights in exchange for satanic privileges, it's an offense against God, okay? And I don't think we want to go there. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this is the preamble for the Declaration of Independence. It's not all of it. There's more of it. But the point I want to make here is that Jefferson is the one that put this together, and he talks about the law of nature and nature's God, and that all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Okay, so that's where the law of nature equals Christian government. Natural law equals Christian government, and I'm going to explain that right now. Natural law equals Christian government. This law of nature, this is that law of nature phrase is taken from a set of books called Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. And Blackstone was an English jurist, a judge, who wrote a set of books. It's a 4-volume set that talks about the laws of England. Anyways, this law of nature being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself is, of course, superior in obligation to any other. It is binding over all the globe, in all countries, at all times. No human laws are of any validity if contrary to this, and such of them as are valid derive all their force and all their authority mediately or immediately from this original. And that's book 1, actually, section 2, page 41. Anyways, and it goes on. This has given manifold occasion for the benign interposition of divine providence, which, in compassion to the frailty, the imperfection, and the blindness of human reason, hath been pleased at sundry times and in divers manners to discover and enforce its laws by an immediate and direct revelation. The doctrines thus delivered we call the revealed or divine law, and are to be found in the Holy Scriptures. These precepts, when revealed, are found upon comparison to be really a part of the original law of nature, as they tend in all their consequences to man's felicity. So again, so he's talking about revelations and the Scriptures, and it says that that's part of the law of nature. And that's again taken from Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. And it goes on. And this is actually page 42, so this is the next page. Upon these two foundations, the law of nature and the law of revelation, depend all human laws. That is to say, no human laws should be suffered to contradict these. And so natural law equals Christian law, okay? Christian government is how you're free, okay? Without Christian government, nobody is free, okay? And that's why what we have right now is we have military government. It is not Christian government. And that's why it's a matrix. Our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. That's John Adams. All acts of the legislature apparently contrary to natural rights and justice are in our law and must be in the nature of things considered as void. The laws of nature are the laws of God, whose authority can be superseded by no power on earth. A legislature must not obstruct our obedience to him, from whose punishments they cannot protect us. All human constitutions which contradict God's laws, we are in conscience bound to disobey. And that's a case, Robin versus Hardaway, in 1772, located in 1 Jefferson 109. So the point being is that natural law equals Christian government, okay? And it's Christian government that makes people free. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. Natural law equals Christian government. As general rule, men have natural right to do anything which their inclinations may suggest, if it be not evil in itself and in nowhere impairs the rights of others. Natural law equals Christian government. Christian government equals freedom. This is a quote from Noah Webster, 1758 to 1843. That's when he lived. He's an American patriot and scholar, author of the first dictionary of the American English usage of 1806, and the author of the 1828 edition of the dictionary that bears his name. When you become entitled to exercise the right of voting for public officers, let it be impressed on your mind that God commands you to choose for rulers just men who will rule in the fear of God. The preservation of our government depends on the faithful discharge of this duty. If the citizens neglect their duty, and they did with Obama, I might like to add, and place unprincipled men in office, the government will soon be corrupted. Laws will be made not for public good so much as for selfish or local purposes. And I also would like to add here right now that they did under both of the Bushes, so it doesn't matter what party it is, and certainly under Clinton. And corrupt or incompetent men will be appointed to execute the laws. The public revenues will be squandered on unworthy men, and the rights of the citizen will be violated or disregarded. If our government fails to secure public prosperity and happiness, it must be because the citizens neglect the divine commands and elect bad men to make and administer the laws. And that's certainly been going on. And we're getting the results of it. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbors to divulge his business or to open his doors to an investigation so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no such duty to the state since he receives nothing therefrom, beyond the protection of his life, liberty, and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land, long antecedent to the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are a refusal to incriminate himself and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure, except under a judicial power warrant, a warrant of the law. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. And that's Hale versus Hinkle, U.S. Supreme Court. And it's talking about the law of nature and the law of the land. And it says here, natural law equals the law of the land, and which is another word for law of nature. It says that the law of the land was long antecedent to the organization of the state. It has been here from the beginning of time. The law of the land has always been here. It's been here from the beginning of time. There's nothing they can do about it. They cannot make it go away. That's why they have to get you into one of their so-called contracts. That's why it's a matrix. Natural law equals law of the land equals Christian government. If you want to be free, we have to have Christian government. It's only military governments where they can impose slavery. And that's what's going on nowadays. Law of the land was here before the government. Law of the land has always been here. Law of the land is natural law. History is clear that the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were adopted to secure certain common law rights of the people against invasion by the federal government. It affirms, the first 10 amendments affirm rights that were already here. That's natural rights, or law of the land. Common law rights are unlimited. And now a little diversion. For great custom websites, domain names, and hostings, go to cubeyard.com. Use coupon code CY172 for 20% off your first order. Cubeyard.com, your source for websites, domain names, and hosting. Anyways, now some examples of satanic government. This is Lenin said, destroy the family and they destroy the country. Okay, that's what these Satanists' agenda is. They want to destroy families. Why do you think they were doing everything that was going on with Obama? They want to destroy the family. The abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power. That's Shakespeare talking about psychopaths. Okay, these Satanists are psychopaths. They don't care what the consequences of their actions are. And martial law equals Roman law equals Satanism. So the first thing they do is they put the government into bankruptcy. They put it under martial law, under emergency rule. That's what we've been under for decades. Since March 9, 1933, the United States has been a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the president may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways control the lives of all American citizens. A majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule for 40 years. Freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have in varying degrees been abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. And that's the U.S. Senate Report number 93-549 dated November 19, 1973. Again, that's the first thing they have to do. They have to get rid of that little common law of the land problem, and impose martial law, which is the law of emergency and necessity. There's no common law crimes in the United States, which is Satanism. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? There's no common law offenses against the United States. Only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command are crimes. That's all evidence of martial law rule, the law of emergency. There's statutes equals contracts equals Roman cult. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. Everything is an admiralty. Statutes equals contract equals Roman cult. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? A writ of error doth not lie upon a sentence in admiralty, but an appeal. That's taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the definition of admiralty, but it's citing Coke and his commentaries in the laws of England, Institutes and the laws of England. And that's what 4 Institutes, 135 and 339, is referring to. That's taken from Coke, which is in the 1500s. Appeals are an admiralty. It's called a court of appeals. Why do you think that it's always a court of appeals? It's the same thing that precipitated the War of Independence. Statutes equal contract equal Roman cult. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? This is taken from the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, and instead thereof to publish and order the use, the exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. Military dictatorship. It's martial law. It's despotism. It's a tyranny. And this is taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner, and he says the same thing as what they said in the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, but he says it in a little bit different way. And so what he says is, in the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. And so, did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? This is basically saying what the founders said in the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms. And so it goes on. It talks about martial law and the Declaration of Independence. which is basically a list of grievances. And the first slide in this was the preamble, and then it goes into a list of grievances. And so these are some of the grievances. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us for protecting them by a mock trial. Those are all evidence of martial law. And statutes equals contract equals Roman cult. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? A penal action is an action on a penal statute, an action for recovery of penalty given by statute. Where an action is founded entirely upon a statute, the only object of it is to recover a penalty or forfeiture. Such action is a penal action. The words penal and penalty in their strict and primary sense denote a punishment, whether corporal or pecuniary, imposed and enforced by the state for a crime or offense against its laws. The noun penalty is forfeiture or to be forfeited for non-compliance with an agreement. That's what they're doing. They have to get you into a contract. It's all by consent. The words forfeit and penalty are substantially synonymous. They have to get you into a contract. And that's why they have the UNIDROIT and the Uniform Commercial Code, because they have to get you into one of their satanic contracts. Statutes equals contract equals Roman cult. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? A penal action is one founded entirely on statute and brought with the sole object of recovering a penalty or forfeiture imposed as punishment for a specific offense, while a remedial action is one brought to obtain compensation or indemnity. A penal action is a civil suit brought for the recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for an offense against the public. Such actions are civil actions, on the one hand closely related to criminal prosecutions, and on the other to actions for private injuries in which the party aggrieved may by statute recover punitive damages. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? And so it's when the whores, when these bar member Satanists, when you ask them what's going on in here, I need to know the nature of this action, they'll tell you it's quasi-criminal. So they're basically telling you all they can tell you. They don't want to tell you it's a civil suit, okay? Because they're planning on putting you in jail. They're planning on selling you into slavery is what they're planning on doing, and I'll show you exactly how they do it as part of this presentation. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Statutes equals contract equals Roman cult. If you go into commerce, you convert yourself into a slave. It's a contract. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, which is Federal Reserve notes, and securities, which is checks and any kind of negotiable instrument, is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from the government. That's the Clearfield Doctrine. That's Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, the U.S. Supreme Court, 1943. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? State citizenship is a vested substantial property right. The state has no power to divest or impair these rights. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? The state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He's not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. That's why they have to fabricate evidence of their U.S. citizen slave. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? The rights of the individual are restricted only to the extent that they have been voluntarily surrendered by citizenship to the agencies of government. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? That's why they have to fabricate evidence of their U.S. citizen slave. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? See the Christian Government equals freedom video, When you walk away from your God-given rights and responsibilities to accept satanic privileges, it's an offense against God. The United Nations is satanic. See the Get Us Out of the UN video. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? The only power that government has was delegated by we the people. The government are but trustees acting under derived authority and have no power to delegate what is not delegated to them, but the people, as the original fountain, might take away what they have delegated and entrust to whom they please. The sovereignty in every state resides in the people of the state, and they may alter and change their form of government at their own pleasure. That's Luther versus Borden, U.S. Supreme Court again. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? The government is bankrupt. See the bankrupt corporate so-called governments video. The government is now owned and operated by the creditors. See the United States is owned and operated by the Roman cult video. The Roman cult Satanists have their owned and operated Congress and the states passing all sorts of laws that really apply to nobody to get we the people into their satanic so-called contracts to generate revenue. The Roman cult Satanists are responsible for the martial law. Martial law comes from the Roman cult. And now a little intervention. Check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3, the Churchianity series, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1, 2, and 3, Do-It-Yourself, How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself, No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself, No Sales Tax, Do-It-Yourself, Traffic Stop 1 and 2, Do-It-Yourself, Free Mail 1 and 2, Do-It-Yourself, Kangaroo Courts 1 through 9. And back to the topic at hand. This is all coming from the Roman cult. This is a book called The Law of Persons by Joseph R. Long, published in 1912. And section 1, the very first section, classification of persons. The Roman law distinguished 3 kinds of personal status. Under Roman law, status is everything. Under common law, status is nothing. And so the first thing they go is they start talking about status and about Roman law. And so then in section 3, loss of freedom, capitis diminutio maxima, a Roman citizen cannot legally be sold into slavery, but he might become slave by condemnation for a crime or by being captured by an enemy. And that's what they're doing. Status is standing, condition. This is taken from Anderson's Law Dictionary, 1889 edition. A corporation has no status as a citizen outside the jurisdiction where it was created. A corporation is a citizen is a corporation. That's why they have to fabricate evidence of their U.S. citizen slave. If they're assaulting you with a Sestake Trust U.S. citizen slave, then you are in United States. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, that's Article 1 military dictatorship, folks, nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. This is National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. A birth certificate is a badge of slavery. The Satanists coerce your parents into registering your birth. The Satanists coerce your parents into applying for a social security number. All of this is because of the ignorance of your parents and you. Mark Passio calls it ignorance, which the root word is ignore. And we're ignoring the law. A social security number is a number for a Sestake Trust. You and your parents gave up your Christian government rights and responsibilities and surrendered them for satanic privileges. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the Public Charitable Trust, the Constructive Sestake Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of USA and U.S. Inc. And this is a summary of 5 pages of the Congressional Record dated June 13th, 1967. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Every taxpayer is a Sestake trust, having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That's Henry Boland's 1912. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derived no benefit from the United States government have no bearing on his legal obligations to pay income taxes. Unless the defendant can establish that he's not a citizen of the United States, the IRS possesses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability. Obviously, Slater had given up his God-given rights for some satanic privileges. U.S. citizen equals taxpayer equals slave. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? This is Chapter 56 and Section 1617 of the D.C. Code, located at 31 Stat 1432, and it says the legal estate to be in the Sestake use. And more stuff on the D.C. Code here, March 3rd, 1901, which was approved by the 56th Congress, Session 2, 31 Stat 1189, where it says, and be it further enacted that in the interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules should be observed, namely, third, that the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? And in Section 252, which is located at 31 Stat 1230 of the D.C. Code, it says presumption of death. A Sestake trust is a dead thing, so they can presume that you're a Sestake trust, and that's where it's all coming from. And the Roman cult is where the Sestake trust comes from. This is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, Volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Yet still, it was found difficult to set the bounds to the ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal PFEs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while a season of the land remained in the nominal PFE, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, and that's still today, folks. To be bound in conscience to account to his Sestake use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. While it was the foundation of modern conveyancing in 1835, it's still the foundation of modern conveyancing, and it's saying that all taxes go to the Roman cult too, by the way. Did you give up your God-given right for some satanic privileges? This is Title 15, United States Code, Section 44, Definitions. Corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, that's a Sestake trust, so-called Massachusetts trust or association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest, and any company that goes through the same definition except it says does not have shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. I used that in my first Supreme Court case when I went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I said, under what authority are they assaulting me with their unincorporated corporation under Title 15, United States Code, Section 44? And they waived their right to respond. In other words, they admitted everything. They said, oh yeah, we know all about that. And then this is Braswell versus United States, U.S. Supreme Court, citing United States versus White, another Supreme Court case. But individuals, when acting as representatives of a collective group, cannot be said to be exercising their personal rights and duties, nor be entitled to their purely personal privileges. Rather, they assume the rights, duties, and privileges of the artificial entity or association which they are agents or officers, and they are bound by its obligations. When that judicial whore asks you, are you the person, and you say yes, you're saying that you want to be responsible for the Satanic Trust. That's exactly what's going on in these kangaroo courts, and that's why they sell you into slavery. They know that it's a Satanic Trust, and they know that you're not the trust. They're getting you to be the surety for their fictitious entity. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, the trier of fact must find the existence of fact unless and until evidence is introduced that supports a finding of its non-existence. That's Uniform Commercial Code Section 1-206, presumptions. And so that's where they create the presumptions. The Uniform Commercial Code is all coming from the Roman cult. This is all military government. Military government works on presumption, and the Uniform Commercial Code, this is showing that two things, that all courts operate under the Uniform Commercial Code, and that this is creating the presumptions. And so, did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? This is Uniform Commercial Code Section 3.308, proof of signatures and status as holder in due course. In an action with respect to an instrument, the authenticity of and authority to make each signature on the instrument are admitted unless specifically denied in the pleadings. If the validity of a signature is denied in the pleadings, the burden of establishing validity is on the person claiming validity, but the signature is presumed to be authentic and authorized. So, did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? What they're doing is they're forging your signature onto a contract, and then they presume that it's a valid signature. And they're circulating that on Wall Street. It's a security, and there's people that have actually found their criminal case at Fidelity Investments. Anyways, this is the Uniform Commercial Code, Section 8.114, evidentiary rules concerning certificated securities. And it says the following rules and apply in an action on a certificated security against the issuer unless specifically denied in the pleadings. Each signature on a security certificate or in a necessary endorsement is admitted. If the effectiveness of a signature is put at issue, the burden of establishing the effectiveness is on the party claiming under the signature, but the signature is presumed to be genuine and authorized. So they forge your signature onto a contract. You have no idea that's what's going on, and unless you start challenging the fact that they're forging your signature on a contract, they'll sell you into slavery, and you won't even know how it happened. And that's exactly what happens. They do it every day. These Roman cult Satanist bar member whores masquerading as judges forge your signature onto a contract and then presume it's authorized and authentic. And who's going to call a judge a liar? That's how they're populating the prisons. Carl Lentz brought up the issue of forgery against CPS when they stole his son in a successful one-page lawsuit, and he got his son back after 11 years. See the judicial whores video. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? So the answer is quit doing anything that they consider a contract. Defeat the presumptions these Satanists are taking under their military government. See the do-it-yourself estoppel certificates video. Exercise your right not to give evidence against yourself. This is warfare. See the do-it-yourself, don't give evidence against yourself video. They cannot assault you with their Uniform Commercial Code without evidence that you were their slave. See the Roman cult slave scam video. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? Everything is an illusion. Quit participating. This is all self-inflicted. This is a self-inflicted illusion. We have to educate ourselves about the law and how it really works. We have to quit participating in what these Satanists view to be contracts. We need to take steps to defeat the presumptions these Satanists are taking with their military government. We need to work together to take back our government from these Satanists and bring them and their Satanist order followers to some common law justice. Hopefully some of them will get it at the end of a rope. Anyways, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and spread the word. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges?